Good morning. It is the beginning of week 2 here in Germany, and we are on the Autobahn. This is actually our third time. The first time we went from Berlin to Dresden, and then from Dresden to Leipzig, and now we're Leipzig to Wittenberg. And it's okay as long as you stay in this lane. Derek is being quiet because he's just going to focus on the Autobahn. So today we're heading for Wittenberg, which is the home of Martin Luther. Martin Luther was the founder of the Reformation. He didn't initially want to leave the church, the Catholic Church, but that's of course how things ended up. So we're heading for Wittenberg. We're going to the Luther Museum, the Lutherhaus, and the museum that's there, and we're going to take you along. We've got a dash cam going, and yeah, it's going to be a good day. Let's go.
As you likely know, the Autobahn is the German freeway system. It's notorious in that in certain areas there is no speed limit. So naturally, when you decide to drive it as a non-German, there's a little fear and trepidation. We prepared for it somewhat by watching some YouTube and reading up to make sure we knew some of the tricks. One video we watched in particular came from our YouTube friends, Phil and Deana. Phil is from Germany and his wife Deana from the US, so their channel was really helpful in getting ready for this trip. I will link their channel and their video on how to drive the Autobahn in the description. By the way, the dash cam footage here is real speed. It's not been slowed down or sped up. You can see our speed at the bottom of the screen. We were not driving fast at all.
So here's the overall observation from 2 weeks of driving, which admittedly isn't a lot. First, there are a lot of trucks, and they pretty much stay in the right-hand lane. Second, there is a speed limit a lot of the time. During construction and in other areas, it was very common for the speed limit to be 60 or 80 kilometers per hour. Most drivers don't drive more than 120, which is about 75 miles an hour, even when the speed is unlimited. We saw only a handful of cars scream by us. Then it was usually only a matter of a half mile or so when they were forced to slow down behind other drivers. So most really aren't driving that fast. But nobody hangs out in the middle or left lane like they do in the US. You move out, you pass, and you move back. That's the way it is. Also, if the speed limit is 100, they drive 100. They don't drive 105 like it's common in the US. It's 100, and they drive 100. That's how it is. Do these simple things, and you'll stay out of trouble on the Autobahn.
So we just had a really nice lunch at the Altstadtklasse. I think that's what it's called.
Yep.
Yeah. And Derek did great. He ordered everything in German, and
By pointing.
well, no, you spoke it. You said,
Yeah,
and so we managed to get through that without using any English. So that's cool. Anyway, we're in Lutherstadt, or Wittenberg, which is where Martin Luther
posted the 95 Theses.
Right. So we're heading up to what we think is the church where the 95 Theses were posted, and we'll take a look.
Derek grew up in a Methodist tradition. I grew up in a Catholic tradition, so I didn't learn a lot about Martin Luther, but
I did.
so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to come here, so we could see how the beginning of the Reformation started and where it started. We found Schlosskirche, also called the Castle Church or All Saints Church, and got to see where Martin Luther preached and wrote his 95 Theses. The church was originally completed around 1511, so it was a fairly new church when Martin Luther posted his theses, the intention of which was to engender discussion around the then sale of indulgences, or the selling of the forgiveness of sin. Martin Luther was deeply opposed to this, but wanted to have a discussion, not start a revolution.
So who was Martin Luther? Martin Luther was a 16th century monk in the Catholic Church who, over time, began to feel that the direction the church was heading was not in accordance with the gospel taught by Jesus Christ in the scriptures. He was born in 1483 in Germany and began studying law in 1505. Due to some life-altering experiences, he entered the Augustinian monastery later that year. However, just a few years later, in 1517, he had some grave concerns and laid out his concerns in a document known as the 95 Theses. The ensuing Reformation changed the world, literally. So coming here was important, and we came away appreciating Martin Luther even more.
Okay, we are heading into the Martin Luther Museum. Lutherhaus is the very place where Martin Luther lived and worked for more than 35 years. All right, so we are inside of the museum shop. Actually, I'm inside. Derek has gone to get cash. They only accept cash, which of course is euros. So we needed some more. So yeah, we went to a restaurant here and they only accepted cash. And now we're in the Luther Museum and they only accept cash. So just so you know, if you come here, they want cash. So be prepared with your euros.
So in this particular place, Lutherhaus, there was building going on all the time because after he got married, or just before he got married, he had to put on an addition to make it larger so that there was room for his wife. And then as their family grew, they needed additional space, so there was more building, and that continued.
And this is the house he lived in.
This is the house he lived in.
This is the house. This is Martin Luther's pulpit, and he preached from this, they think, over 2,000 sermons. It said he was tireless in taking care of his pastoral duties, taking care of the people. This house, in addition to being for Luther and his family, was also a refuge for people who were being persecuted because of their belief in these ideas and in this new type of faith. So it was a refuge as well. This is where Martin Luther had table talks, where he spoke with people about the Reformation and his concept of how and why things needed to change. Inside a room that has copies of the hundreds of things that he wrote. But look at this. It's a printing press.
This may not be the actual press that printed Luther's material, but it is a printing press that is from the 1500s, so it would have been very similar to this kind of a press.
Martin Luther died February 18, 1546, of heart condition, and he's buried here in the Castle Church. Back on the Autobahn, we headed for St. Thomas Church in Leipzig. This is where the great Baroque master Johann Sebastian Bach lived and worked for the last 27 years of his life. He served as the cantor of St. Thomas Church in Leipzig, and among his many duties was composing original works for services held there, teaching singing and Latin, conducting, composing, and playing for weddings and funerals, as well as going to other churches in the area to assist them. He wrote at least 1,164 works that we know of. There may be many more that have yet to be discovered. He was a prolific and brilliant composer, artist, and musician, arguably the best or one of the best the world has ever seen. He passed away in July 1750 at the age of 65 due to complications from an eye surgery. He is buried here in St. Thomas Church.
Now we're going to go to the Bach Museum. Bach Archive. Let's go in.
Across the street from St. Thomas Church is the Bach Museum. Inside, you'll see the remains of an organ that Bach played, copies of Bach's music, and a virtual orchestra. where you can hear the sound of many of the instruments used in Bach's day. The museum is open Tuesday through Sunday and costs €10 for adults, and children up to 16 are free. You can also book an online virtual tour of the museum if you can't make it to Leipzig. Our time in Leipzig was done and we were off again.
This time to the small town of Soest, Germany. And if you haven't heard of Soest, it's okay. Even a lot of Germans haven't heard of it before.
But that'll be next time. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and ring the bell to get notified.
You bet. And until next time, restless friends, you take care.
Cheers.